Wendy, light of my life. You didn't let me finish my sentence. I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in. I'm gonna bash them right the fuck in. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special episode of Straight to Series.
Special and spooky episode.
Special and spooky episode 24. The Shining episode.
Oh.
Whoa. My name is Connor.
I'm Ian.
And welcome. Please check us out on SoundCloud,
Instagram,
everything.
Spotify,
Facebook.
YouTube.
Check that all out. But yeah, so because we're in Shocktober,
We sure are.
spooky time, spooktacular. We're going to do a special themed episode
Yes.
for this Halloween.
If you haven't guessed already,
If you haven't guessed already,
the door's that way.
yeah, already, we're doing The Shining.
And the door leads to nowhere.
Yeah,
Because we're doing The Shining.
Because we're doing The Shining. Door makes no sense.
No, makes no sense. And that will make sense in a
I'll
while.
come back. You may have spotted our very slight teaser last week. You remember? We teased it very slightly, real subtly. I think it went over.
We're doing The Shining.
Yeah, I think it went over a lot of people's heads, but you know. But yeah, we're gonna do The Shining. It's a movie we both love.
We kind of almost regret it because, just like the movie, it's an absolute maze.
Yeah, it really is.
The research, it's ongoing. Like it's just never ending.
Ian got so into this movie, I'm convinced he could tell me the family trees of every single person who worked on this film.
It got a bit deep that way as well.
He'd be saying, and you know what this person did next, and then do you know who they're married to and who's the relation? And it's
I'm in too deep.
Yeah, you're in too deep. You're
Just like the maze, the hedge maze.
The hedge maze that isn't in the book. Ooh, teasers for later. No, yeah, so if you've never heard of The Shining, it's a movie.
An absolute classic of a movie.
A classic. Not that everyone thought that when it first came out.
No. In 1980.
1980. People did not like this movie when it first came out.
We should set it up. So Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick's the director.
Who is just an enigma of a guy.
Yeah, if you've never heard of Stanley Kubrick or The Shining, if you're listening to this podcast.
2001 Space Odyssey.
Clockwork Orange. Eyes
Full
Wide
Metal.
Shut. Full Metal Jacket. He was
Barry Lyndon, wasn't that
That's the failure. That was the film he did before that.
Before The Shining.
It was a period piece, and then it wasn't received well. I think the thing I heard about it was it's a beautifully shot film.
Yes,
not a very good one.
Yeah, loads of zooms. He revolutionized zooms.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool to hear. But it's over 3 hours long.
Yeah,
and it made no money. So Warner Brothers weren't too happy.
They were not. So he needed a win.
Big time.
And that win was meant to be The Shining. Basically.
And it was.
It was, yeah.
It was.
Eventually,
yeah. So Nicolas Cage. Nicolas
Cage.
He could give it a good go.
Jesus Christ! If you thought Jack Nicholson was overacting, wait until you get Nicolas Cage in there.
Nicolas Cage. That would have been amazing.
I'm not gonna hurt you. Ghost Rider.
So Jack Nicholson,
yeah.
Shelley Duvall,
Daniel Lloyd,
the
is 5-year-old.
The 5-year-old who's amazing.
He is playing Danny in the movie, and then there's a myriad of other actors playing smaller roles.
Those guys.
Yeah, those other people. But
that's the Torrance family, though.
The Torrance family. It's based around the Torrance family who go and agree to look after the Overlook Hotel during the winter time.
Yeah, for 5 months of solitude.
5 months of solitude in the winter.
Yeah.
And
chaos ensues.
Is it all in his head? Are there ghosts in the hotel? Why is the son crazy? Is it just an imaginary friend?
Does the hotel consume him? Was he always at the hotel? Did he ever leave the hotel? Is it a loop?
Is it a loop?
These questions will not be answered, sadly.
They never will. But
we'll talk about theories and what we think.
But in terms of, just to get into more background, the box office of this movie.
Yeah, sadly you can only find out the domestic box office numbers and not worldwide, but it is viewed as a win. Mm-hmm. So it cost 19 million to make in 1980, so I guess that would be a hefty budget for a horror movie back then. Yeah. Sure, there's movies get made for like 5 million and 10 million now. Blumhouse.
Blumhouse, yeah.
Yeah.
Took a year to film. It was only meant to be done in 6 months.
It's crazy. Yeah.
The guy who invented the Steadicam,
Yeah, he worked on it.
he worked on it, and he had to miss dates for Rocky 2 because the filming of this movie took by 6 months' time, which is when he was supposed to stop.
Yeah, he was assured that it will not go longer than 6 months to shoot, and at 6 months, less than half the movie was filmed.
Yeah. So
That says a lot.
and they were rewriting scripts for this movie on the fly on the set. You know, daily. They had to color coordinate them.
Yeah.
So that if Kubrick walked around and he saw someone with a different color sketch.
Yeah, you're on the pink script. No, we're on the yellow now.
Yeah.
That's the most up to date version.
Yeah. It's crazy. And there's even set photos of, like, we'll get into this later, but elements that are just dropped from the film entirely.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
When you film for a year, there's gonna be loads of scenes on the cutting room floor. Like,
I'm surprised they didn't actually kill each other on the set.
Shelley Duvall came close.
She did.
Let me have a look actually how much it made.
Yeah, let's get an exact number for it.
So it made 44 million in North America.
Okay.
On a 19 million budget, but it also obviously came out worldwide,
Yeah.
and it did well worldwide.
Yeah.
But I can't find out the numbers because it was 1980, and I looked it up, and I really cannot get even an estimate. But either way, Warner Brothers were happy.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're happy with merchandise now
Totally.
and just DVD sales.
Oh my God, the cultural impact of The Shining is insane.
It lives on.
Yeah, it really does. Despite the fact that when it first came out, we were touching on this earlier, Shelley Duvall won a Razzie for her performance in this movie.
Well, she didn't even win
She was
one.
nominated, sorry.
She wasn't bad enough, but she was close.
She was close.
So she got nominated for a Razzie, and so did Stanley Kubrick for Worst Director. Now, I understand, like Shelley Duvall, there's certain things about her performance that I say more so now
Yeah.
looks a bit hammy,
Yeah,
and she just looks a little over fragile in
Yeah.
a way.
exactly.
But I would say, like, even back then, everyone was like, it's visually spellbinding. So I don't know how you could say that he could be up for a Razzie. Now,
know.
they didn't win, but it was also the first ever Razzie Award.
Yeah, started in 1980.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Crazy. And imagine all the wonderful movies that have won Razzies since then. You know?
I looked at who's the current holder of Worst Actress.
Who?
Melissa McCartney.
Oh, for which movie?
A Happy Time Murders.
The Happy Time Murders.
Yeah.
I saw that on Netflix. I was going to watch it.
Me also. Maybe not now, though. I actually was going, I'll give that a go.
I did the exact same thing. I was scrolling through and I was like, I might do it. I might do it. And then I saw The Laundromat and I was like, okay, I'll watch that
I'll watch
instead.
that instead. Yeah.
And then I can't wait to watch Dolomite, but we'll be getting into that at some stage.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, like, you know, we've done the Predator podcast before, as you may have seen, you know.
Which was so much fun.
So much fun.
This is a lot bleaker.
This is a lot bleaker episode, but
It's an absolute mindfuck as well.
It's a movie that has enraptured us in a very similar way, you know?
Yeah, even more so. Like, honestly, I'm just locked in a maze after watching this, and just the further I went, and the more answers I seeked, the
Yeah.
more questions has just appeared.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm actually I know less.
I know
The more I
less.
know, the less I actually know. You
It's
know,
crazy. It's like this movie is haunted like the Overlook Hotel. Or is it haunted? Is it all in Ian's mind?
it could be.
Yeah.
Does it exist?
Does it exist?
Are we watching the same movie?
No, but I mean, getting into the background and making this movie, like Stanley Kubrick, you know, he's this visionary director. He was a professional chess player for a while, wasn't he?
He made money out of playing chess.
Yeah.
That's how intelligent this guy was.
Apparently has a 200 IQ. Apparently, I heard that somewhere, but.
And he was also a still photographer for a long time. And a lot of people, I watched loads of interviews, and loads of like the people that worked on the set was like, he was so technically minded. It was amazing. Like, it was just amazing. Like, one of the guys, I can't remember who it is, but he says, excuse me, I drank so much Monster.
Yeah.
One of the guys that is working with him, I think it's one of the camera operators, says that he would be the world's best cinematographer if he wasn't the world's best director.
Oh,
honestly.
Wow, what a.
His knowledge of lighting as well, like in the Colorado room, and we'll throw up images of that. I'm sure everyone knows what it is anyway.
Totally.
Where Jack is typing away, like he knew the exact lighting that he wanted to emulate the sun bouncing off the snow and coming through the windows, you know, because it needs to be super bright, and that's why it was so warm as well.
Yeah.
It was like a sweat box in there.
Crazy. And then, like, you know, there's when they were designing this they had a set, but it's also based on an actual hotel that they got
Timberline Lodge.
The Timberline Lodge. And because Stanley Kubrick won't fly, hates flying, the older he got, the less he did it, completely stopped doing it in his older age. So he had people go in and live in that hotel for 3 months, take pictures of everything, and then he wasn't even there for there's a famous opening shot. I'm sure you've seen it, of like the helicopter going through. Stanley Kubrick wasn't there for any of that.
And this guy is so meticulous.
Yeah.
Like this guy wants to, like, he would like to comb their hair almost, you know, like this guy, he was obsessive to the end, but he wouldn't fly.
No, his hatred of flying trumped his love of movie making and getting everything right.
Which is kind of scary.
It is scary. I wonder why he hated flying so much. A man that intelligent doesn't like flying. He knows something I don't.
I read interviews with like friends of his that were, I think, softening the edges. They were like, oh no, it's just because it was out of he was just being professional. Like he didn't want to I think they said there's 3 places in the world that you can make movies: LA, London, and New York City. Yeah. And he thought that he didn't want to live in LA. He hated LA, and he thought London was better than New York City, and that's why he never left London.
I feel like that's just not true.
I feel like that's them being friends. Yeah, you know, just being friendly.
I mean, look, it's nice that his friends will stick up for him, but the man had his eccentricities,
and he was known for them.
Yeah, he was. No less a genius, though.
No, exactly.
But we have the initial reviews in here. You just have them up on screen there.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's based on a Stephen King novel, and it was only the second movie to adapt a Stephen King story before. And
it was his 3rd ever book, so this was early on.
Early on, King.
It was released in 1977, the book itself.
Well, we have it here. I can find out.
I'm pretty sure it's 1977.
1977. I normally have to do this. Continue. Is there anything else you want to say while I try and find the 1977? Yep. 1977. Excellent. But yeah, and Kubrick bought the rights from King
flat out, so he could do whatever the fuck he wanted. Yes. And he did.
He did whatever the fuck he wanted, basically.
To the demise of King, he's King not a happy guy.
King was not a happy camper about what Stanley Kubrick did to
He still isn't a happy camper.
Yes, he still isn't.
Almost 40 years later.
There's lots of stories about, you know, their behavior and everything. Like you told me one, but I mean, we're not sure of the validity of all these stories, but the one you were telling me one about when King wanted to do his own version of it.
Oh yeah. So years later, well, what happened was, so Stanley Kubrick just bought out the whole book, and initially Stephen King wrote his own screenplay for Stanley Kubrick's movie. Stanley Kubrick didn't even want to look at it. Yeah. He didn't want to entertain that. Get that shit out of my face. And he went and got a different writer, this a woman who wrote a book that he really enjoyed.
It was like, it's like something Shadows or something. I think
that's it. I'll get the name of the woman here. Diane Johnson.
Diane Johnson.
So I think that was a kick in the groin as well.
Yeah.
Because like he actually just hired another novelist to write the screenplay with him.
Stanley Kubrick is quoted as saying that Stephen King's writing is weak. Wow.
So yeah, he wouldn't even look at Stephen King's screenplay, and then years later, in 1997, King made his own miniseries.
5-hour miniseries.
It's supposed to be god awful.
It is. Now, accurate to the book, which I have read, actually. I should say I have read both The Shining and the sequel Doctor Sleep, which is why we're covering all this, by the way, because Doctor Sleep is coming in in a few days. You know, it all links in.
And Halloween and everything.
Halloween is just spooky time, you know.
And it's a great movie.
It
is a great movie. But anyway, so King, the rumor goes, I hope this is true.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. King had to go to Stanley Kubrick and buy the rights back, or get the authority off him, which is amazing for his own book. And supposedly Stanley Kubrick agreed, as long as Stephen King agreed contractually to not badmouth his movie.
Love it.
Which is
very difficult
amazing.
For King.
I say he's broke that contract a few times.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like conflicting stories about the relationship between King and Kubrick. Like some people, like King would say that Stanley Kubrick would call him late at night, but then other people would be like, Stanley Kubrick never rang Stephen King and asked him anything.
Yeah, but like the way Stephen King puts it is that like Stanley Kubrick's asking for advice on the on how to adapt the movie.
And certain elements of it.
And then there's loads of friends. Stanley Kubrick said like he wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
He didn't do that.
But there's one story that King famously tells is that late at night Stanley Kubrick rang him and said, don't you think stories of the paranormal and ghosts are actually hopeful stories in the end, because it's showing that there is a life beyond in some fashion.
A life beyond death.
Life beyond death. And King responded with, where do you think hell fits into that? And Stanley Kubrick responded with, I don't believe in hell.
I don't believe in hell.
I love that.
That does sound like Stanley Kubrick, though.
That sounds like a Stanley Kubrick story.
You know, Stanley Kubrick was so intelligent and so technically minded that when what's the name of the guy who created the Steadicam?
I don't know. You might have to find his name there somewhere.
I want to.
We want to shout him out because he's.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
The guy's awesome.
Yeah. He is. His next.
Garrett Brown.
Gareth Brown.
Because Garrett Brown talks about how Stanley Kubrick helped revolutionize the Steadicam.
Yeah.
Like, actually, just the technology of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he improved it. Stanley Kubrick actually improved it.
That's so good. And then Garrett Brown's next work after The Shining, as you were telling me, is
Rocky 2.
Rocky 2. And then after that, didn't he do the Steadicam for
The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And he famously walked through the woods with his Steadicam, filming at 1 frame per second to get the speedsters. Is that what they're called?
Speeder bikes, yeah.
The speeder bikes. To get that kind of shot of them flying through the kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, the
Endor,
pace of it. Like
the Endor woods, the woods on Endor where the Ewoks live.
Yeah. So he just walked through woods for hours.
Hours and hours.
Filming at 1 frame per second to get that kind of feel that they're going crazy speeds.
Crazy.
Awesome.
I need to go back and watch that scene and like see how long it is, and then like break it down what it would be like to do that one frame per second. Oh yeah, that's got to be rough.
Dedication. That's what that is.
Dedication. Yeah. But yeah, you know, this movie is famous for loads of reasons. I mean, they used the Steadicam and the dolly for those tracking shots, isn't it?
Yeah, and he also had a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And they were holding the camera because they couldn't go so low when they're doing some of those tracking shots. So there's loads of times where like Kubrick or your man Garrett Brown is like sitting in a wheelchair and he's getting rolled around while he films them.
Well, they follow in famous shots, you know, Daniel Lloyd going around in his big wheel. And famously,
it was a mistake, this sound of him going from carpet to wooden floor, because it's so percussive and it's amazing how
it is.
Also, how it reverberates through the whole big Colorado
Colorado lounge.
Yeah.
It's something like you can't predict it. You know, like it was unpredicted that would happen, but it adds so much in terms of sound design.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's really, really cool. And then you were saying that like, you know, we watched it just before this, and it was actually, we delayed starting the podcast because we kept getting enraptured watching this movie. I watched it earlier this morning before coming here, and even still when we put it on, I was watching it.
And I watched it yesterday.
Yeah. I've seen this movie so many times now, and every time I watch it, I get something new out of it. But you were saying one thing that always sticks with you about the big wheel is that when he sits back on it at some stage, he reaches behind and he pushes the wheel.
It just looks odd. It looks like something the kid does himself.
Yeah. Which is a strange...
It's like he's getting himself started.
It's kind of like I don't know, it's something you don't expect to see, and it's never addressed in the movie, but it's so human and kid-like, you know?
Yeah, it's so natural. Like, the kid's so good in front of the camera.
He's amazing. And he never did any acting work really afterwards, except on TV.
that was his first as well.
That was his first, yeah, as a 5-year-old.
Supposedly, approximately 4,000 kids they interviewed and auditioned.
Crazy.
Oh, we should mention this while we're talking about him auditioning. Is the finger?
Yeah.
Tony.
Red Ram.
That was Daniel Lloyd's creation. He just did it in his first audition.
So good. I mean, this movie is endlessly quotable. Like, even if you haven't seen the movie, I'd say you know parts of The Shining just from media and everything. But yeah, Daniel Lloyd's performance throughout this movie is just amazing. Like, I can't shout that out enough. He's great, and they didn't know he was filming a horror movie, and he never got to see it until he was 16.
Yeah, they tricked him and said it was a drama. Now, we were watching some of his performances, and when he's screaming and he's got his hands over his face, like, what sort of drama did he think he was in?
Yeah.
But Stanley Kubrick was really good with the kid and sheltered him big time.
Totally. Apparently, he's like the nicest man to certain people. Him and Jack Nicholson apparently got on like a house on fire.
Yeah, you know? And him and Shelley Duvall, the way he berated her.
Yeah, and tortured her,
tortured
basically.
her.
Yeah, him and Shelley Duvall did not get on.
And it was on purpose.
It was.
He was torturing her to get that performance.
Yes, so basically Shelley Duvall, if you've seen the movie, is a mess throughout most of the movie.
She fell ill.
Yeah.
She fainted at one point.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about her hair falling out because of
clumps.
stress.
Yeah.
She was so dehydrated from crying all the time.
Yeah. A lot of terrible shit happened to Shelley Duvall. Now, afterwards, she has said she's only spoken highly of Stanley Kubrick. She says, you know what, after seeing it and coming away from it and everything, I'm good friends with Stanley now, and I respect what happened, you know.
I think she sees the product.
Totally.
You know, the end game. Like he pushed her to her limits, and
Yeah.
like it's probably the best performance she'll ever.
Also, I mean, human
Yeah.
bodies, our whole thing is that we forget trauma. Like, we're trained to forget how traumatic a situation was, you know?
Yeah.
So, like women are trained to forget what childbirth, the pain of childbirth, so that they'll do it again, basically. So I'm sure there's an element of that going on. But it is nice to hear that she's okay with the Stanley Kubrick
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And also, Jack Nicholson in interviews praises her. Is like saying that was the most difficult role I've ever witnessed any actress ever do.
Yeah, she did so well. Jack Nicholson also famously said he loved working with Stanley Kubrick, and he said, when you work with Stan, you know, it takes the biggest fear of an actor out, because you know he's gonna get exactly what he wants, you know, leaves nothing to chance. So good.
And yet he would famously only learn his lines on the day of shooting because Stanley Kubrick was changing the script constantly.
Yeah.
It was constantly just dipping and diving here and there. So eventually Jack Nicholson just got fucking so tired of it. He was like, I'm just going to learn whatever lines on the day because they're going to be updated.
Yeah, they're going to be different. We're going to be doing this scene again later, and it's going to be different in some way.
Which adds to his performance because it's so amazing. Like, it just shows how goddamn good Nicolas.
Well, it's
I nearly
fresh.
said Nicolas Cage again.
Oh,
Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, it's so fresh every time, you know. And Kubrick was surrounded by his family on set.
Yes,
you know?
Vivian
Kubrick, yeah,
is his daughter, who also shoots the making of documentary.
Basically, it's a 30-minute documentary. You can find it out there. It's all this great behind-the-scenes footage.
Brilliant.
And
you see Jack Nicholson just chilling in his dressing room as well, and his charisma is just amazing and
palpable.
infectious.
I believe that man had a tunnel in his house to the Playboy Mansion.
Yeah.
I believe it, yeah. Have you seen his son?
No.
His son looks like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Really?
Yeah, like really like Leonardo DiCaprio.
How's his hair?
Good.
Really?
Flowing.
Good for him.
But yeah, to get away from Jack Nicholson and his handsome son, to go back to kind of Stephen King, we're jumping all around on this podcast. We had a plan, it's out the window. But Stephen King had a lot of problems with it.
Stanley Kubrick, he did a lot of stuff to that
alienated
story.
King, yeah. Even in the movie, you can see it. Like, for example, in the book, you know, there's lots of difference between the book and the movie, but he has a red Mini in the book, you know?
Yes.
And famously, Stanley Kubrick, when Dick Halloran is going to the hotel to kind of, you know, save everyone,
Yeah.
there's a burning red Mini over there.
And Jack Torrance in the movie has a yellow Mini.
A yellow Mini, yeah.
So it just seems like a big fuck you to
Basically.
Stephen King.
And an even bigger fuck you, Dick Halloran is alive and well at the end of that book.
Yes.
He is not murdered by Jack.
There's so many differences to the book.
There really is.
I was shocked. Now, for someone who hasn't read the book, the hedge maze is not in the book.
Yeah.
Like, to me, the whole movie is centered around the hedge maze. You know, even the parallels with the hedge maze to the inside of the actual hotel itself and all the right angles, it's like a maze itself.
Yeah.
And then to find out that that wasn't in the book, I was shocked.
I know. It's crazy. And then the fact that in a maze you can get lost in and get confused and everything. It's kind of a maze you could, you know, going crazy. The parallels could be drawn to running through a maze, you know, if you're
Big
going
time.
crazy. But yeah, it's not even in the book.
No.
In the book they have hedge animals that come to life and attack people. It's just, it's cool. It's...
Yeah, so hedge-shaped animals that guard the hotel itself.
Basically, there's like a lion, a rabbit, and a dog. And there's a cool scene early in the book, because I read the book, and there's a cool scene where they're kind of facing you. They move to face you in the back, which is cool and ominous. Yeah. But then towards the end of the book, they come alive and start attacking, and it's not good. You know?
You see, it seems a bit silly, the fact that they're bushes.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's just not... If they were like concrete, like the gargoyles coming to life, I'd be like, oh, that'd be scary.
Yeah.
But when they're bushes, I'm just like, set them on fire.
Totally. That's what happens.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they get set on fire. Yeah.
Trim those hedges, you know?
Trim those hedges, bitch. No, it's one of my least favorite aspects of the book. There's a few I actually I don't know, it's tough. I really like the book, but the movie's just so good in so many ways, you know?
Oh, we should talk about Wendy. This is like Stephen King really disliked.
He really disliked
the portrayal of Wendy.
Yeah, so Stephen King, I mean, he you know, when he wrote the book, he had no input and he hates the movie. Famously hates the movie.
Hates it.
And the portrayal of Wendy, and I can agree with this, is a big part of that because she is a victim through and through in the movie. She stands up for herself. Like, I mean, she does actually attack Jack at multiple stages, but you don't believe that she'll do it.
No, and it's almost like it's her last resort.
Yeah.
It is literally her last resort with the baseball bat.
Yeah.
She really does not want to do this.
Almost like she gets lucky as well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like she's like, oh, I accidentally protected myself.
And it's literally when there's like one more step between them, and she's going to be dead.
Yeah,
so she has to do it. And the same when she cuts his hand when he's coming through the door.
Yeah.
Like that's her last resort.
Yeah. And like in the book, she's a much stronger character. She's doing she's a lot more active in trying to protect Danny and everything. And you know, when she does attack Jack in the books, you know, you feel that she doesn't want to do it, but she knows she has to. I mean, look, I love the movie. The movie's great, but Wendy in the books is a far better character.
Yeah, that's one thing I do feel is it seems a little unnatural.
Yeah.
At how she's, I don't know, so defenseless, so fragile.
Yeah.
Oh, what? There's one other thing.
Well, I mean, Jack.
Oh yeah, Stephen King famously said it's like one of the most misogynistic characters he's ever seen. On the silver screen.
Yeah. Jack.
Like that's pretty. They're harsh words.
They are harsh words, but I mean, Jack Torrance in the book is less of an unforgivable kind of. He gets redeemed at the end of it, you know, and his descent into madness is a bit slower. But I mean, it is a book, so you know you can take your time with it.
Well, Stephen King hated how ambiguous it was, the film, the way you don't really know, is it the hotel fucking with people?
Yeah.
Is it just the people going mad themselves? Where in the book it's clear that it's a haunted hotel.
It is. And
the hotel is really what's pulling the strings.
Totally. And that's what's kind of more interesting about Dr. Sleep and why I'm interested in seeing the movie, because the book leans in heavily to The Shining. Dr. Sleep relies on that as a premise, you know?
Really?
It's like, it's a strong, like, The Shining is a serious thing, and it's basically, if you can't buy into that, you know, in the movie, if you can't buy into that, or even in the book, if you can't buy into that, you know, people are imagining, people are going crazy, you know? You can kind of infer that, but if you're going to see Dr. Sleep, you got to be able to buy into this psychic thing, you know? Which is interesting. Like in the book, they make it clear that the Overlook Hotel is already kind of this haunted, spooky place. But Danny is such a powerful psychic with The Shining. He's acting as a power battery.
Right.
And you get the sense that if Danny dies in the hotel, they'll be powered up for forever. You know, they'll be able to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why they want Jack to kill him, because it'll feed the hotel and make it more powerful and more of a kind of.
So different.
Yeah.
So different.
Yeah. So you know, it's pretty cool. Like they don't have this moment in the movie necessarily, even though, you know, they have the famous scene of Dick Halloran explaining The Shining to him and everything. It's a bit longer in the book, but Dick's like, look, if you ever need any trouble, you know how to get in contact with me. Here, try it now. And he's like, okay. And Danny goes, okay, so just say something in my head. And in caps it goes, hey Dick, how are you? And Danny says, oh, I held back, I didn't want to hurt you. And Dick Halloran is sitting there and he was like, that was like getting shot in the head.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he's like, this kid is so powerful.
Wow, okay.
Such a powerful psychic. And then later when he's screaming in his head for Dick to help, you know, like you don't really notice it in the movie, but Dick is like floored when he's hit by him, pretty much.
Like
he's
bursting like, his telepathic eardrums.
Yeah, his head is like exploding and pounding, and even when he's flying over to get him again, Dick is hit with it again on the plane, and he's like spasming out. And the woman next to him is like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine."
Wow.
So they really lean into the psychic element of it.
But yet, my favorite thing is how ambiguous it is.
Totally, it's the best part of the movie.
That's why I'm enthralled by it. That's why I didn't like it when and why I think a lot of people don't like it.
Yeah.
Is when I was in my early teens and I first watched the movie, I was like, I need some questions answered. What the fuck? Especially the ending. I was angry. I was just like, oh, okay.
I love that ending.
It meant nothing.
Yeah.
And then I think when I was around 15, 16, I watched it again, and the reason why I watched it again is like, all right, I'm going to understand it this time. And I didn't understand it again. And then just as you get older, you kind of accept that maybe you're not supposed to understand it, and that's what's amazing about it. And then by the time I was in my 20s, I was like, I love this. This is a masterpiece. But it's funny how it completely flipped from the start, where I was like, I need some sort of resolution. I need to know what's going on here.
Yeah.
You know?
And then that's kind of mirrors the reaction of people when it first came out. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
That was probably the problem with it, that it doesn't answer any of the questions that it poses.
And you just kind of leave going, wait, what happened there?
I love it. I love
what exists and what doesn't exist.
That's why I can separate the movie and the book. Like, I couldn't compare the two. I like, you can compare them in terms of what happens and anything, but in terms of quality, the book is great. I love the book. I love Dr. Sleep, the sequel, and the movie is amazing. The Shining movie is so good, and I can separate them because they're different. They're different. It's the same story, but it's different, you know? Like, the ambiguity in the movie is what sets it apart. It's amazing. It's
so good. And then you get to choose what you believe and what you take from it.
Yeah.
So everyone's got their own idea about the movie.
And what
some
actually
people
happens.
have some wild ideas.
Wild ideas, but we'll get into that at some stage.
Some out there ideas.
There's a whole documentary called Room 237 that we're going to do some breaking down later.
It's a fun watch.
It's a fun watch. Make sure you watch the movie first and then watch Room 237. Because you do not want to go into that movie with all these fucking ideas in your head trying to watch it. Oh my God. It nearly ruined the movie for me. But
yeah, really?
Yeah, because
you went literally from A to B, didn't you? Like,
I watched Shining once because I'd never seen it before. I read the book before, then I saw The Shining, and then I watched Room 237, watched Shining again. I was trying to enjoy the movie, but I couldn't.
Were you trying to like connect different theories?
Because I was trying to look for the justification for a lot of the theories, and then I wasn't finding it in some, and then it would move on too quickly before it wasn't that fun of an experience. Yeah. And then I watched Room 237 again, and I was like, oh my God, I kind of dismissed it all and been like, well, these are just theories, you know?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And then when we were watching it before here, I was enraptured by The Shining again, so thankfully I got my love back for it, but it was a tough go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, is there any other differences we want to go over? I mean, the character of Jack is pretty different.
Well, actually, we should talk about how close this book is to King's life. There's parallels, and this is probably why he takes such offense to the changes. Yeah. Because Stephen King was going through addiction problems, cocaine, alcohol.
Stephen King, he had some famous quote where I think he doesn't remember writing it because he was so coked up out of his mind at the time.
Which you can see.
You can see. Yeah, I'm reading that book still.
Right.
Still reading that book. Progress has slowed to a crawl. But I'm reading it, and you understand, man, that this is a out there book, but he does not remember writing it. Whereas, like you said, Stephen King's an alcoholic, and even the second book deals with alcoholism. And funny enough, Stephen King got through alcoholism through Alcoholics Anonymous. So that's why in the second book, in Dr. Sleep, not trying to spoil Dr. Sleep or anything, but Danny beats his drinking addiction through Alcoholics Anonymous and going through the steps and everything like that.
But like Stephen King actually checked himself into a hotel and was trying to just sort his life out. And you can see the parallels of like Jack Torrance destroying his family. Yep. Obviously he was afraid he was going to split up his family, and he's pretty much destroying their union.
What he had, like, there's a famous thing in the movie and the book where Jack, he comes home and he's a writer, much like all of Stephen King's books. There's a self-insertion of a writer there, and he comes home and Danny has like messed up his papers or whatever. In the book, Jack pulls him so hard that he breaks his arm. In the movie, it dislocates his shoulder or whatever. But that is apparently a real incident.
Yeah, where he had his son had all his notes sprawled across the floor, and he went a bit crazy at him.
Yeah, went a bit too far maybe.
Yeah, maybe stepped over the line slightly.
Yeah, but
so of course he's going to take offense when I'm sure loads of his books don't have so many parallels to his real life,
Yeah.
especially a tragic part of his life as well.
Like Jack Torrance is very close to his heart, and you kind of get that indication in Doctor Sleep as well.
Right.
You know, like
Also, the fact that it's his third book, you know?
Yeah.
So when you're earlier on in your career, it's harder to separate from it, you know? That way, like,
yeah, everything's a bit more fresh.
everything's a passion project.
Yeah, and you know, like Jack gets a redemption in it, and in the book, it's really he's trying to fight the hotel, like he's not giving into it as much. Like in the movie, he kind of gives into it,
Yeah.
you know, a bit more. But that's what's fun to watch. It's his descent into madness.
We should actually mention what happens to the hotel. This
Oh,
is one
yeah.
of the biggest differences.
The biggest difference is at the end of the book, the hotel blows up,
Gone.
gone. The hotel is gone, destroyed.
The hotel doesn't win.
No, the hotel does not win.
Where the hotel wins,
Kind of. In the
if you
movie.
believe that it is the hotel pulling the strings.
Totally. Well,
which is kind of what I'd like to believe.
Yeah, me too. The hotel added one more member to its party.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
not the member it wanted.
Yeah, and loads of theories think that the hotel consumed him,
Yeah,
which I like that idea.
I like that idea too. Well, I mean, there's an original ending. This goes back to its reception. The movie ended
Yes.
differently, didn't
Yes,
it?
thankfully you remember this.
Yeah, no problem.
The movie ended so differently. So there's 2 minutes cut
Yeah.
from the movie, and we should actually mention that then 20 minutes got cut for us
Yeah,
in
the
Europe.
European release.
Because Stanley Kubrick, Warner Brothers was breathing down his neck, and for like he's a visionary and he's a genius and all that, but the guy still wanted to make some money.
Yeah.
You know, and also after Barry Lyndon, he actually wanted to make a Napoleon movie, but he didn't make enough money,
No.
so he had to make something else.
Which
so
sucks.
there was pressure on this movie.
Yeah.
And it wasn't doing super well in America, so he decided when they unravel it for the European audiences, they were going to cut 20 minutes off. But he still cut 2 minutes off from the American release because the original ending has Wendy and Danny in a hospital, and the manager Ullman, the hotel manager,
JFK looking guy.
the JFK looking guy,
Yeah.
comes to visit them and says that the police have looked all over the hotel and they
Yeah.
can't find anything strange about it at all, and they can't find Jack's body, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And then Ullman also hands Danny
The tennis ball.
the tennis ball,
Yeah.
which is an indication that
Yeah.
maybe Ullman's in on it.
Maybe. Well, that's the thing. People believe that Ullman's whole intention is that he knows the hotel has this sinister plan or whatever, and he's happy to kind of sacrifice people during
Yeah.
the winter because it means he gets to keep open and have a good time during the summer.
We should talk about the final fuck you as well.
Yeah.
Is it has like it just text comes up on the screen confirming that the Overlook Hotel has survived another tragedy,
Yeah.
and it will still be open
It is still open to this day.
to this day.
Yeah.
And it's still closed for 5 months during winter.
During winter. Like, that's a big fuck you to Stephen King.
To think that like the big ending of his book,
Yeah.
it's destroyed. It
It
blows
is.
up.
I will say the book has this issue. Like, the ending of the book is good, but
And he's famous for having endings that
iffy endings. Yeah, he's better.
don't satisfy a lot of people.
His beginning and middle is normally really good, like the premises and everything established, and the endings, they're a bit iffy. But I mean, you figure out what's going to happen the hotel is going to blow up, and Tony, Danny's psychic friend, is trying to tell him, and I think the book thinks it's doing something cleverer than it actually is by having
Right.
the ending be the boiler. Because Tony tells Danny, he's like, you will remember what they have forgot. And in my head, I know, oh yeah, because the boiler, it's going to blow up. But it takes time for Danny to do it. And if he'd written it better, Danny is a kid in this, so that's what you have to try and remember. But it would be better if, it could be written in a way where Danny, it's more because he's a child, he doesn't think of these things,
Yeah.
So, but other than that, in fact, actually, Doctor Sleep does a better kind of twist ending I didn't see coming, basically.
Right.
Not
cool.
a twist ending, but there's twists and turns in the whole book that I didn't see coming.
Enough said.
Enough said. Yeah.
So
Sorry.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. I mean, I like both movies. I like not both movies. I like the movie and the book. It's tough to I don't have any animosity that the movie isn't like the book.
But you can totally understand why Stephen King would be
Yeah,
angry.
totally. Yeah, Jack Torrance is Stephen King, you know, and it's tough. Jack Torrance in the book I love. Jack Torrance in the movie I love as well, but that's because that's the same reason I like the Joker. You know,
you didn't like Jack Nicholson. I was about to say Nicolas Cage
Nicolas Cage again. I'm telling you, I'm gonna have to whip you every time you say Nicolas Cage.
You will have to.
Yeah. But yeah, he didn't like Jack Nicholson.
No, he didn't, and he had a good point.
Totally.
Even though I absolutely adore Jack Nicholson's performance in this,
everything he does
turned up to 11, and it's amazing. It's amazing. So exaggerated.
Put the bat down, Wendy.
Put the bat down.
Oh, no, it's stop swinging the bat, Wendy. That's it.
He's amazing in it.
So good.
But why he didn't like Jack Nicholson is because he just came off, what is it, the one who flew...
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and he just kind of played an eccentric character.
Yeah.
And even his face and his smile is just... He has madness written all over his face.
Yeah.
And Stephen King just didn't like that because he wanted Jack Torrance to have a slow descent into madness. And so he preferred someone like Jon Voight, who'd look a bit more reserved as Jack Torrance, where instantly, and I do feel it instantly, you're like, oh, Jack Nicholson's a bit crazy.
Yeah, he's a bit crazy.
There's a bit of madness in those eyebrows.
Totally. And now there's something, we're gonna be talking about Room 237 in greater depth later, but
The documentary.
But there's some elements where they suggest stuff like for some reason people think that there's some like sexual like predation between Jack Nicholson and his son. Danny, and I just do not see that at all.
I don't see that. And after watching the documentary, when I was watching the movie, I was looking for it just to see, and I
really don't get it.
It says more about the person who's seeing that in that movie.
I agree. Elements of the documentary I've found was people's backgrounds and everything. They're putting pieces together that aren't there.
Whatever someone's obsession is, whatever their background profession is, and they're obsessed with, they see it. They just project it onto the movie.
They project it. Yeah, there's an element of projection, and there's ignoring facts.
Yes,
they ignore stuff that would disprove their theory.
But isn't it funny that you make a movie with such ambiguity that it's going to happen? You know, people who are obsessive are going to watch that movie and go, oh, that's about my life.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I am interested in.
Exactly. It's about
amazing in a way.
It's about an Indian burial ground, you know? It's about the Holocaust. It's about sexual repression. It's just crazy stuff. But I think we should go on and kind of try break down a few key scenes in the movie, some of our favorites, you know? Because we're going to gush about them, basically. Of course. So we're just going to break down some of our favorite scenes from The Shining.
Yeah. What's the first one on your list?
Jack Torrance freak out, 4340. But yeah, there's lots of elements of this movie. Like,
oh yes, this scene is amazing.
Yeah, every scene is amazing for one reason or another.
So if anyone who's watching this, this is 43 minutes and 40 seconds into the movie, and this is where Wendy goes in to see how Jack is doing.
Yeah, see how he's doing.
How his play is coming on.
Yeah.
Well, it's a play in the book. We actually don't know what he's doing in this.
No, we don't. So one of the elements cut out is this scrapbook. There's a scrapbook in the book that's really important because Jack starts trying to, you know, it talks about the Overlook's dark history or whatever. So
this details loads of the Overlook Hotel's history.
All the shitty stuff that happened. It explains a lot of the ghosts you see later and everything.
And there's an actual picture of them filming this scene.
Yeah.
Where Jack Torrance finds the scrapbook.
Yeah. And
which ends up on the table in this scene.
It ends up on the table in this scene, and it's in pretty much every shot of that table from here to the end of the movie.
That's quite obvious.
But it's never addressed.
Yeah.
And I had not noticed that until you told me there was a picture of him finding the scrapbook.
It's mad, isn't it?
It's crazy.
So, what was I saying? How many? 43?
4340.
4340. Yeah, so this is where Wendy goes in to see how things are going. And Jack ain't so happy about this interruption.
Happy. He really is not. You can just let it play from there. It's all right.
Yeah.
But
there's some really good trivia about this, though.
Yeah, totally. It was Jack Nicholson's. He wrote this scene. He came to Kubrick and he was like, you know, he had this moment with his ex-wife. It was towards the end of their marriage.
Yeah, or I think it was his girlfriend, actually.
Was it?
Oh, no, wait, maybe it was. I've actually seen so many conflicting reports. I think you're right, though.
I think he said it was before his divorce or something.
Yeah, it was. It was. And he was making a movie in the day.
Yeah.
And then he was writing a movie at night.
Yeah.
And she interrupted him, and he was very cold towards
very
her.
cold and furious to her, despite her being just the nicest person in the world.
Says, hey, how you doing? And he
Yeah.
just like flips out at her.
Yeah,
And yeah, he spoke to Stanley Kubrick about the scene,
Yeah.
and Stanley Kubrick,
loved it.
and put it into the movie.
Now, some of the theories in Room 237 suggest that this is because one of the big theories about this movie is that it's Stanley Kubrick telling us that he faked the moon landing. He did the footage for the Apollo. Which one landed on the moon? Apollo 11?
Is it Apollo 11? That's what's on his jumper anyway.
Apollo 11 landed on the moon or whatever. And but yeah, and this is Stanley Kubrick's scene where he's, talking about the government having pressures on him, and
because he had to keep the secret from his wife.
he had to keep the secret, and he's trying to work on how to get it out there, but he can't or whatever. But again, that theory makes no sense.
Yeah, it totally debunks it.
When Jack Nicholson wrote this scene,
Yeah,
not Stanley Kubrick.
or at least inspired the scene.
Exactly.
And it's a fantastic scene. He is so mean to her.
He's so mean.
And Wendy is lovely.
He is. And you get the impression that like this isn't how Jack normally is, because she wouldn't be this happy and chipper all the time if Jack was constantly berating her and everything. Like, you really get the idea that the Overlook has had some serious effect on him.
But yeah, he's not overplaying it yet.
Not
as
yet.
well.
No.
Oh, a little bit actually.
There's elements of it.
We have the theory that we only came up with while we were watching this a few minutes ago. So he rips up a page, and we wonder, did he ever write any word
Was there
that wasn't?
All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yeah, we wonder if he's just ripping that up right now, and he just never sees it.
Yeah.
He just thinks he's working away.
Yeah, or maybe like even at the end of the scene is the first, because he types something on his
you
typewriter
said
at the
this
end,
too,
and I was like, maybe at the end is the first time where he kind of realizes that he went a bit crazy, and then he went, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, and then he's just obsessing over that line over and over again,
Just in a trance
as he's going crazier and crazier.
And we should say who wrote. So there's loads of conflicting rumors that Stanley Kubrick himself wrote all those. No work and no
all work,
all
no
work
play.
and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yeah.
But it's actually his secretary.
His secretary had to write 500 pages.
And you might say, some of those typewriters, they have like a memory.
Yeah.
But the paragraphs change, and the template constantly, the layout keeps changing.
Yeah.
So it had to have been physically done. Maybe one or two. They could have done like 3 pages of one, then 3 pages of the other. But it took her months. And why this is true is because Vivian Kubrick, his daughter, says this.
Yeah, said it. Now, people always gave Kubrick the credit because they were like, he's the type of guy who would do that,
He's the kind of maniac, the attention to detail.
Yeah. Oh, look at this. We've moved on to Jack's stare out the window. I fucking love it. He's just, honestly, he just wants to kill them both,
Do you want to jump to the next?
Yeah, well, the next one we have is the staircase scene.
Which is?
146.
146. The most iconic scene, I would say.
I would say only second to the Here's Johnny scene.
Damn, you got me good.
Yeah, I think
got me good.
I think that's more iconic. But the staircase scene is the best scene in the whole thing.
It's my favorite scene.
Yeah, it's my favorite scene too. It's Jack Torrance freak out I love, because it comes early on in the movie and he's just needlessly mean.
It's the first real taste of how horrible he can be as well.
Yeah, totally. But this is just Shelley Duvall is terrified. You can see she's exhausted. So this holds the record for the most takes.
127 takes.
It's in the Guinness World Book of Record. 127 takes.
So that's why Shelley Duvall looks so exhausted.
Broken.
Broken is the perfect word.
Just broken by everything that's happening. Not understanding why. Again, this links into, Jack being kind of a good family man. She's clearly not understanding why he is suddenly turned into this person,
And 127 takes. Now, can you imagine doing this 127 times where your director is berating you and saying, "Oh, you're terrible. You're ruining this," because that's what he was doing to Shelley Duvall.
He was going after her constantly throughout this movie, trying to get her to that emotional state, and
and it worked.
And it worked. Well, whereas all Jack Nicholson had to do was just get angry over and over again, get angry and crazy, and kind of overact.
And this was famously parodied
by many things. The Simpsons.
The Simpsons, I think, is the biggest one.
Yeah, Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. They have a whole episode of The Shinin, Not the shining.
Yeah, the shining.
You got the shining. Don't you mean shining? Do you want to get sued? That's Willie. That's my terrible Willie impression. But yeah, give me the bat, Marge. Give me the bat. Give me the bat. Give me the bat. Give me the bat.
I love this scene so much.
It's so good. Everything he says is just gold.
Look at the absolute exhaustion in her face. I just want to give her a hug.
Yeah, I just want her to sit down and just rest forever. And just everything about the scene, the lighting, like it's bright in the room, but it's so dark.
Now, I read that she swings the bat 42 times. Mm-hmm. So,
oh, for God's sake.
If she did it 42 times in every take,
yeah,
I wonder how that would be 127 multiplied by 42.
Yeah.
That'd be 5,324 times.
Jesus Christ.
Now, I'm sure there's takes where she does less, but I'm sure there's takes where she does more.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, I did a perfect spot-on Jack Nicholson impression of this scene at the beginning of this episode. Nailed it. I'm never... when I watch this episode back, I'm going to skip through that because that'll be too embarrassing.
Oh, really?
Well, we'll see. I might
no,
watch
you want to
once.
massage your ego.
Yeah, I do. If it's any good, I'll watch it once. If it's not good, I'll never watch it again.
If it's any good, you'll watch it more than once.
I will. I'll show people it. Yeah, but, I mean, put the bet down, Wendy. When he does the turn in this scene,
it's excellent.
He goes from crazy to just sinister, and then
the
back
tongue.
to crazy. The tongue, you know, everything about it.
His tongue does a lot of work in this movie.
It certainly
He's
does.
always pushed up against his back teeth.
Yeah, everything, and whenever he speaks,
Wendy,
it's sharp. You know.
Yeah, and he takes one on the head.
And then the stuntman does some serious work here, falling down them stairs.
And making sure his face is concealed.
Making sure, oh my God, can you imagine how many times Kubrick would make him do that if he didn't get it right?
That stuntman, that poor stuntman.
Poor stuntman.
Surely he spent a few days doing that.
He must have, yeah. I wonder who was more battered and bruised at the end of that scene, Shelley Duvall or the stuntman?
Or the stuntman. I still say Shelley Duvall.
Yeah, me too.
Emotionally.
Emotionally, definitely.
More emotional bruises.
Speaking of more iconic shots from this movie that we forgot, the elevator scene.
Elevator scene is amazing.
And what's crazy about it is it took them 3 takes to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is great for Stanley Kubrick.
Totally. That's really...
3 takes.
That's good. And it's crazy when you think that a movie can repeat a shot, like the exact same shot over and over again in a movie.
It's so visceral.
It's so visceral.
It's amazing.
And you don't mind seeing it over and over again.
I love that scene so much. And we should one of the theories that I love, even though I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
But it's in room 237 where they talk about how they think it's the blood from the Indian burial grounds. So it's all the Indians that died during the genocide.
You learn the hotel is built on an Indian burial ground.
Native Americans, I should be saying.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so it's the blood of all those killed...
Yeah,
massacred Native Americans. Yeah. I love that idea.
Me too. I agree with you. I don't agree fully with the theory, but the idea of it being the blood of the victims of the hotel.
It's a fun theory, isn't it?
Or people who've been killed there. I would think that that's what it is.
I prefer the people who were killed there.
Yeah, exactly.
The victims of the hotel who they've consumed.
Yeah, basically, and that it has to come out at some stage. You know.
Yeah.
Like. Yeah, it's.
Does
great.
it ever actually really happen though? That's the thing as well.
No, never.
It's just another question to
the
list.
I never think it happens. I think it's
just seen, and it's Wendy who sees it, isn't it?
It's Danny who sees it first.
Well, Danny sees it first, and then Wendy eventually sees it.
Wendy sees it at the very end after she sees all the other ghosts, which, funny enough, is our next scene.
Oh, but here I want to say one thing about the blood. Yeah. Stanley Kubrick had to convince the advertisement board or whatever, the film board, because. That it was rusty water.
Yes.
Because you were not allowed to show blood in trailers in the 1980s. So he had to convince them that was rusty water.
Oh, very obviously rusty water. Yeah.
Well, if you didn't see the movie,
you wouldn't know.
It still looks like blood.
It still looks like blood. Yeah. And I love the idea of it's like an old timey salesman. Where they're like, isn't that blood coming out of the elevator? No. It's rusty water. Don't you worry about it. Don't you worry about that, sir. It's like a Weekend at Bernie's, you know?
Yes.
Anyway, hey, Bernie, how you doing? And he's a fucking dead man, and they're just waving his arm around and everything. Who wrote that movie? What a strange premise for a movie. When would that ever work?
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to see. It took 9 days to set up one of the shots for the blood coming out. So they had to do it in 3 takes, really.
I love it.
So it took 9 days to set it up.
So good. And when you hear that, you understand how this movie wasn't even halfway done in 6 months.
And when I think about this movie, I see that scene constantly.
Yeah.
I really do. Obviously, because it's repeated, but it's such a terrifically visceral scene. It really is.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's one of the. There's so many scenes like that. It's just kind of synonymous with this movie. Like instantly, you just go to the scene, and that's one of them for me.
The elevator is actually a thing in the book. It's that it's old and it's got people. You're kind of scared to get on the elevator or whatever.
Is there a bloody scene like that?
No bloody scene. No, I don't think so. No, there's no blood in the elevator.
Right.
That's yeah. It's so visual. And you made an excellent point that if you got the script for The Shining, you wouldn't think it was a good movie. You know?
Definitely not. And only a director could write it.
Yeah, because it's so visual and visceral. You know?
I wonder if they had storyboards, because if he was constantly changing his ideas,
I doubt it.
which even for the 1980s, that would be odd. Mm-hmm. You know, when you think of like Terminator, like James Cameron spent, because he couldn't get the movie made, he just spent like a year storyboarding the whole movie so it was ready to go when he got the green light.
Have you heard Arnold talk about doing the first Terminator, by the way, just to get on a tangent for a bit? He says that his idea about the Terminator was he needs the guy, whoever plays him, needs to be trained. Like the Terminator can never blink when he fires a gun.
Oh, I've heard about this.
And he can never look to see how a gun's reloaded, because that's not who he is. He's a machine. He has to do everything machine-like. And
OJ nearly did it. Jesus, that's more terrifying, arguably. Oh, yes.
Yeah, considering he's a real murderer. I mean, alleged murderer.
If the glove fits.
It didn't fit.
It didn't.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it fit. Yeah.
Probably banging his hand off fucking something to make it swell before he tried to put it on.
What a stupid idea.
I know.
What was I going to say? But OJ, funny enough, South Park have a great episode where about OJ Simpson. Yeah, Butters goes missing. Butters, his parents think they killed Butters,
right?
But he's gone missing, and he comes back at the end, and they admit that they thought he had gone missing. But OJ comes and visits them, and he's like, "Yes, someone also mysteriously murdered my wife." And then there's other people, and they come in, and then at the end of the thing, they just end up shouting at him, "You know something that you aren't telling us." Anyway, back to The Shining. Sorry.
He's on Twitter.
He is. He's on Twitter now that he's out of jail for stealing back his own memorabilia.
So what's the next scene?
The next scene, as I said, was Wendy's ghosts. And these are all the interesting ghosts. We didn't get a time for it, but it's just after 2 hours into the movie, I'd say.
Okay.
About 2:05, 2:06 maybe. But yeah, so it's Wendy seeing the ghosts of, or maybe she's not seeing, maybe she's imagining, of all the people who lived kind of in the Overlook, you know?
Yep.
And it's just such a cool scene because it's like it's so unexplained in the movie,
and it ties to the book, you were saying.
It ties to the book. So like the character in the dog costume and the guy getting blown is the original owner of the hotel, and Roger.
Out of context, which I've been watching it for years, you're the only person who's ever said this to me. Like I've been watching it out of context for years, and I'm always like, Stanley Kubrick is an odd one.
Yeah, he's an odd fella, but that's from the book. So it turns out Stephen King is the odd fella.
Yeah, there we go.
It's amazing the elements that Stanley Kubrick chose to leave in and that he chose to leave out.
I know. He's like, well, the dog blowing the owner, that's staying in there.
That's got to stay in. But, explaining who the owner is and talking about the history of the...
Or Jack's sobriety.
Yeah, or Jack's... Nah, we won't deal with that. But yeah, so the dog is actually the owner. And you find that out in the book.
Wait, the dog's not the owner?
No, the dog's not the owner. It's Roger and it's Harry Derwent. Derwent, I believe, he's the guy who owns it.
Right.
And he also has ties to the mafia and the mob. And like in the book, you find out that mobsters... Actually, could you leave it playing? Because we're going to see the victims. Like we're going to see the elevator and the blood is going to come up. But... in the book, you find out that Derwent had ties to the mob, and like a mob hit went down in the hotel, and people were butchered. So
is this in the scrapbook you were saying as well?
It's kind of in the scrapbook. Okay. Yeah. It actually is in the scrapbook. Sorry. Yeah. This is when you first kind of learn of it, and then when Jack starts hallucinating and ends up like hanging out with the ghosts, they tell him about it first.
Right.
You know? But
it's amazing.
It is. Oh, it looks so
Danny
good.
just ran into the hedge maze in the snow, which was crushed up styrofoam and salt.
I can't imagine anything worse for your skin if it got on it.
You know what? When I was ever since I started watching this movie, I always loved the scene where Danny slides down the snow.
Me too.
But
jealous.
now that I know that it's crushed up styrofoam
I don't even
and
wanna,
salt.
Wouldn't even want to touch it.
No,
Ugh.
it's horrible. People on the set that were working there said that their boots were falling apart because of the
Crazy.
salt.
Ugh, disgusting. I don't even add salt to most of my meals. Genuinely, I never use salt.
Really?
Yeah, never. Not even on chips.
Oh, here we go. Here's Wendy again.
Here's Wendy again. This is where she sees wounded man. And so a mob hit went down and the mobsters were murdered by axes. So might be who this guy is thinking.
Okay.
But it looks like a guy from the party as well. He doesn't look like a mobster, so I might just be reading too much into it. But
well, it's not explained at all in the film, so
exactly. And like in the book, they keep finding like streamers and balloons around the place because of the party.
It's the party, the New Year's party.
Oh, it's so good. I love you were telling me that Stanley Kubrick had to tell Shelley Duvall to stop jumping at every word.
Yeah, because he thought it was just a bit hokey.
Yeah.
She was just every time Jack, which is like every word he says, you know, he over fucking exaggerates and he's just like in your face, and she was just a bit too jumpy.
Yeah.
And like she was doing that on purpose. I mean, like it's not as if he was scaring her every time.
No.
But sometimes she was jumping at every word. But the way Stanley Kubrick even says it to her, you're like, oh, he's not a nice man to her.
No, he is not nice to her. I'm glad they sorted things out allegedly afterwards, but still.
It seems like she respects what he was doing.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's got a lot of compliments over the movie over the years.
I'm
so
sure. Yeah.
Maybe that's why. Oh, here's the scene, which is really out of place.
Yeah, so this is the one scene that I always find strange. It's like the only scene that you would think comes from a classic horror movie.
Yes,
you know?
where she runs into the lobby and there's skeletons everywhere, and all of a sudden there's cobwebs everywhere.
Yeah.
This is not in the European edition,
which is
I'm
weird.
pretty sure this isn't. And I could understand him cutting this scene.
Yeah.
It would not be one of my favorites.
No, but at the same time, I kind of like it though. You know, it's like
the first time he fully embraces like a kind of a horror trope.
Well, he fully embraces it, and then it's nice to see the parallels where Jack sees a buzzing party with people he wants to be around and everything. Shelley Duvall sees what it really is:
absolute death,
a room of corpses. You know, and it's I keep calling her Shelley Duvall because
Wendy.
Wendy is so different for me in the books that it's Shelley Duvall in the movie. You know. Like Wendy is a blonde bombshell apparently.
Yeah.
It's like a former cheerleader and everything. Not to say Shelley Duvall is an ugly woman or anything, but she's just so different that it's tough to...
She's so dainty.
Yeah, I don't associate her with Wendy. But Jack Torrance, when I was reading the book, I did see Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, really?
Oh yeah,
that's great.
Yeah. But that might just be because, you know the movie from media and everything. Anyway, the second last scene we wanted to talk about is the most famous scene in the movie. Here's Johnny, 201. And there's so much trivia about this one scene. Like, there's great behind the scenes footage of Jack Nicholson amping himself up to get through the door.
And he nearly hits some, I don't know what he is, some guy on the set with the axe, because it's a real
axe. Yeah,
it's a real axe.
Yeah, he had to use a fake one for when he kills Dick Halloran, and he had to practice with it for weeks
just to get the weight right to make it look like he's holding a real wooden axe.
Yeah. By the way, Dick Halloran, the actor who plays him, has the best name ever, Scatman Carruthers.
It's so cool.
And then the guy who was meant to play Dick Halloran, what was his name?
I don't know his name.
We'll find out. For it. It's like, oh man.
He's the guy who he worked with Stanley Kubrick
on Doctor Strangelove and How I Learned to Love the Bomb.
And he was like, I want no part in this movie because I know how Stanley works.
Yeah, and then Stanley got another guy to play him, and the other guy, Scatman Carruthers, was apparently broke down in tears in one scene because he was so fed up with doing it over and over again.
And supposedly it's the scene where he's describing The Shining to Danny.
Yeah.
And Danny, the little kid, who's like 5 or 6, he was fine. He was just like, oh, that's repetition.
Yeah, exactly.
Kids love repetition anyway.
It's true, yeah.
Where Scatman was just losing his mind and broke down in tears.
Oh, man, Scatman's a cool guy.
And then luckily, he went on to work with the easiest going director known on the face of the earth.
Hello, I'm Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood,
Very
who's
easy.
notorious for being chill on
Yeah.
set. Sometimes he'll only do 1 and 2 takes.
We've said it before, but he says to all his actors, he's like, all right, on you go. And that's how he starts it. Instead of action, then he goes, that's enough of that now when it's time to end. Slim Pickens.
Slim Pickens. How did we forget that name?
I've no idea. Slim Pickens. He's in Blazing Saddles as well.
So he was going to be Dick Halloran.
He looks like a white actor.
Yeah, no, he was.
Oh yeah, he was.
Yeah,
right.
he was. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a funny actor. Have you ever seen 1941?
No.
Oh yeah, he's in that as well. He's a funny movie. Yeah, he's a real cowboy guy. I've never actually seen Doctor Strangelove.
Me either.
I'd love to watch it.
Yeah, I'd like to give it a go. I've never seen Clockwork Orange.
Neither have I.
Oh really?
And I haven't seen Eyes Wide Shut either.
I haven't seen that either.
And I haven't seen 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I have seen that,
Okay.
and I have seen Full Metal Jacket.
I've seen Full Metal Jacket. That's the only other one other than The Shining that I've seen. Crazy. But I know so much about all of them.
Yeah, I know. Same myself. They're huge pop culture, icons. Really.
I've never watched any of the Godfather movies.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's get to this scene.
Anyway, Jack comes through the door. Famously, Jack Nicholson ad-libbed the line, "Here's Johnny."
Also, we should say that it's a reference to
Johnny Carson.
Johnny
Carson show.
And Johnny Carson used the soundbite of Jack Nicholson saying "Here's Johnny" for one of his shows in the 1980s when the film came out.
Oh.
But Jack Nicholson was like a voluntary firefighter for a while, so he could swing an axe.
Yeah, he really could, and he kept destroying the fake doors that they made.
Yeah,
like
the prop team made
stunt doors too easily.
Yeah, he just ran through them.
Yeah, so they eventually had to give him real doors to bash down.
Just to make it a little harder for him.
Yeah.
He got some good technique.
He certainly does. He knows what he's doing anyway. Also, it just makes me like Jack Nicholson more that he was a volunteer fireman.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like...
Shelley Duvall actually says she estimates there was around 60 doors that he went through.
Crazy.
Now, surely, probably the first 15 were those, terrible little wood chip doors.
Yeah. Oh, man, this scene is great. This film takes its time, but it doesn't feel like it when you're watching it. When
it ramps up, though, it feels like it's just a race to the end.
Yeah.
Like it really, it's high octane. The last 20 minutes.
And you know why that is? I've been trying to think about this, and my opinion is because you're living it. You know, like when you're living something, it feels like it's going a mile a minute, and you're really living the horror in these scenes. Like you are there with them, going through all the motions, even like the slow walking around there. You know, that's terrifying, and it's just such a good job of putting you in that situation.
And it's a great balance, because sometimes you can do that and you're like, oh my god, the pace of this movie's put me to sleep.
Yeah.
But in this one, you're just absorbing it.
Yeah.
You know?
Like you said, you're enraptured. You're just watching every scene and you're just going along with it, and you're on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
You know, what's happening? What's going to happen
Jack
next?
going to do next?
What's Jack going to do next? Where are we going? How's she getting out of this one? You know? Oh, it's great. There is another scene, but we've kind of mentioned it before, and it's Jack at the party. But we don't really need to go over it, or we can if you want.
I know, sure. We have to go through loads of them there.
Yeah,
it's a fantastic scene, though. It's
totally
amazing. And some of the trivia that I found out, that like the band in the background that are singing and playing all have like these in-ears.
Yeah.
So they're listening to a song and miming to it.
Crazy.
And that so there's video of Stanley Kubrick telling the extras to just mouth your words and not actually speak,
and don't nod your head too much.
Yeah, don't over nod, because it looks fake and hammy, which I just love.
And isn't Stanley Kubrick's daughter in the scene as well with her friend?
She's on a couch. She's in a black dress next to her friend in a white dress.
Do you want to play it so we can see it actually just while it's going? No, it was forward a bit more. Yeah, there you go. I love Lloyd, the bartender.
Lloyd's great.
All of Jack Nicholson's interactions with him are great. You're always the best of him, Lloyd. Always the best. All of this, him nodding his head and then looking for his money. And now he has money because he's selling his soul and everything.
There's a great shot of Stanley Kubrick and his production team telling certain extras that they need to go into the back. And the extras look so unhappy.
Yeah.
Because they're getting moved further away from the camera, you know?
Yeah, well, there you go. And then there's the great scene with Grady in the bathroom.
Yes, and there's a bit of confusion about that scene as well.
There is, yeah.
Because his name changes. Ullman says it's something Grady at the start, and
Yeah.
then his name changes in the bathroom scene. But it is the Grady that killed his wife and kids, because he admits to it.
He admits,
He
yeah.
corrects them. Is that what he
He
says?
says, I corrected them. Not only that, he denies it blankly, and then all of a sudden, when Jack calls him out, he's like, no, I didn't do that.
Yep.
And then later on, when he's convincing Jack, he's like, and I corrected them.
Delbert Grady. That's what he is
Grady.
in the second half.
Yeah. I'm gonna look up and see if who the actor is credited as playing. You know.
Oh, actually, that's interesting. I can tell you now. The Delbert Grady.
Delbert Grady.
That's what he's credited as.
Okay. What does Ullman call him at the beginning?
I do not know.
Oh, by the way, another interesting fact that you pointed out to me is that the Shining twins aren't twins.
Aren't twins, even though the actresses playing them are identical twins.
Identical twins. Their daughters 10 and 8 apparently.
10 and 8 is what Ullman says,
Yeah.
which always went over my head.
Yeah.
And they're known famously
As
as the Shining twins.
By the
or
way,
the Grady twins.
The Grady twins, yes. And can we just say, one of the theories basically that all the numbers in this movie are multiples of 7.
Yep.
8 and 10.
8 and 10.
And and Danny's 5. So that throws that theory out the window. Anyway. Yeah, I literally just thought of that there, and I was like, "Wow, all the numbers in this movie," and I was like, "Whoa, I can't believe that."
Yeah,
and then
like they're clutching the straws at times.
And then I just went, "Wait a minute, 8 and 10." Counting on my fingers like a Neanderthal.
But there's that moment where they're like, "Oh, look, 7 up, 7." You know, you're like, "Oh, come on, relax, guys,
Yeah.
relax."
Take it easy, boys. Take it easy.
Yeah.
Grady's performance in this is great as well. Like whatever actor is playing him. Do you have his name there?
It is Philip Stone.
Philip Stone. Yeah, he's great.
Oh yeah, I wanted to show you.
Lloyd as well.
Sorry?
Lloyd as well. Whoever plays Lloyd
Lloyd
as well.
is fantastic.
He's so
I
good.
will tell you, Lloyd is Joe Turkel.
Joe Turkel. And how long did they rehearse for before they did that scene?
Joe Turkel says 6 weeks. And what I love is he also says it's his favourite scene. Like, of course, because you're in it.
Yeah, it'd be my favorite scene if I was in The Shining.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if I was the bartender.
What's your favourite scene? Oh, the one that I'm in.
Yeah, the one that I'm in, exactly.
So that's
her.
Vivian there with her friend.
That's cool.
That's very cool that she's in it.
Yeah,
Such an iconic movie.
yeah, that's awesome. I'd put all my friends and kids in my movie if I was making movies, you know.
Well, I'll be in it then.
Yeah, you'd be in it. Yeah,
Hold you to that.
very minor role. Very minor.
Very minor role.
Very minor role.
If you squint, you can kind of see me in the back there.
Yeah, yeah. And then I'll cut you out and I won't tell you.
I'll be like Brian Callen in Joker. I'm going to
Yeah.
be in Joker.
I'm gonna
Tell
be
all
in-
your friends.
Yeah, tell all your friends you're going to be in Joker. And Mark Maron's like, yeah, I'm in Joker too. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
It's just not the case. So we've been referencing this documentary throughout the whole podcast, Room 237, and it's a doozy.
I watched this thinking it was all truth
Yeah.
until 10 minutes in, and then I was like, oh, this guy's talking about Ullman's hard-on.
Yeah, it's not even...
Okay.
It's a lot... Elements of this are so stupid, you know?
Yes.
People going too far, reading too much into everything. You got to take everything they say with a pinch of salt.
Yeah,
you know?
they're creating theories, just creating them out of thin air. But at the same time, it is enjoyable to see how crazy and obsessive
Yeah.
people can get over a movie. And that's Stanley Kubrick's like fascinating way of, like, when you make something that ambiguous, this is going to happen. And I
Yeah.
kind of love that. I
Me too.
love that he created this monster.
And I love the fact that you know, in all the theories there are elements of it where you go, okay, I can see that. There are elements of it where they go, push it too far, you know, I'll admit that. And but there are definitely times in this movie where I'm like, oh, I agree with these theories. Two of the ones examples I agree with. Just a quick one. When you first see Danny before he learns about the Overlook or whatever, there's a dopey dwarf on the wall, sticker on the wall, and then you push in and he learns about the Overlook and he has this attack, and then he's back in his room, and the next time you see that wall, dopey is gone.
It's gone, yeah.
And that's because he's clued in now. He knows something bad is going to happen. He's grown almost, you know.
And
I
this
love
is the
that.
thing, because there's a debate where is it continuity problems, because supposedly they were filming for almost a year.
Yeah.
And if you're doing, we've already covered how many takes they done for certain films as well. Oh, sorry, for certain takes, like for certain scenes. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so if you are doing like 50 takes per scene, there's going to be continuity errors as well. So it's hard to gauge. Some of them I'm like, oh, I can see that, and some of them I'm like, I don't know. Like,
it's crazy. And then the other theory that I love is a Minotaur theory. So that,
do you believe this, or would you just like to believe this?
So the thing that set is a woman who talks about it. I don't know her name, but the thing that set her off about the theory is the skiing poster. That I don't see. She says the skiing poster looks like a Minotaur. Don't see it. Don't get that. But then she points out all these other times where there's references to the Minotaur and the Greek story and everything, and all of those I agree with. Adding the maze, the fact that the maze isn't in the book, that he adds it, that he turns more animalistic in the end, and the maze is ultimately what traps and kills him. All that, the parallels to the Minotaur are there. I actually really enjoy that, and I like it. But
looking through his brows,
he looks there's
like
horns. A lot of there's teas in the movie, and they've extended bits at the end, kind of look like horns and everything. There's a lot of horned imagery, with a cowboy and then a bull and everything. There's all this other kind of imagery, and I understand that, and that is what convinced me of this theory, but not the initial one she found. I don't agree with it at all. No, don't think it looks like
it's a guy skiing.
It's a guy skiing, even though they say skiing isn't big at the hotel.
Yeah, they do say that.
But there's other crazier ones, like there's a lot relating to history. People saying it's about the Holocaust.
Just mainly because the typewriter?
The typewriter's German, and there's an eagle on it, and that's the Nazis. And that there was about the Holocaust. It was kind of like Office, like there's a lot of paperwork and stuff like it. That's how it started. But the typewriter changes color throughout the movie
42 as well,
which I love.
1942,
yeah.
It's a real stretch. You could tell that it's someone who's obsessed, and their profession is German history.
Yeah.
So they're just seeing parallels everywhere. They're just like, oh well, that relates to this and that relates to that.
It's the same guy. Another guy talks about, we've mentioned him earlier, Indian burial sites, and it's about the genocide of native peoples,
which makes a little bit more sense because there's tons of Native American imagery everywhere, but still,
it's a stretch.
Even the poster, they actually say that the poster, it's like the terror that's stretched across America or something like that is on the poster.
The terror that stretched across America,
And he's like, no, that was the only terror he can think of was the genocide of Native Americans.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a serious stretch.
It is, but
put on your poster.
But then there's other things, like he talks about the peace pipe stuff and all of that I really like, and the fact that, the first time you see it, it's straight on, and then you see Stanley Kubrick, there's pictures of him arranging the cans a certain way, and that the cans aren't all facing the next time you see it.
Yep.
And then talking about, Jack talking about the burden of the white man, and talking about stretching out from, you're the best bartender I've had, and Timbuktu, for all this other stuff. But then there's other elements where they're like, in this outside shot, they're about to be hit by a car.
Oh my god. And there's also one of my favorites is the final shot of the movie when it's Jack frozen, and then it slowly fades into Jack in the picture, in the 1921 picture, and for a second Jack looks like he's Hitler, because his face kind of, when it's fading, it gives him a mustache for 1 second, and they're like, oh look, it's about the Holocaust because he looks like Hitler for a second.
No,
it's
not.
There's also a guy that gets so excited over seeing a man look like a giant for a second, because there's a guy sweeping a floor, and then it slowly fades to an outdoor shot, and it looks like he's like sweeping the woods, and he's a huge giant.
Huge guy. Hate it. Don't like any of that stuff.
Makes
really
no sense.
And then there are other elements of it where, like, one guy said, this famous theorist was like, this movie deserves to be watched backward and forward, and then what they did was they went to a cinema and they overlaid it.
Yeah, like superimposed both of them over each other.
Superimposed it, and they had it playing backwards and forwards at the same time. Looks really cool.
That looks like an experience.
It looks really, really cool. I thoroughly enjoyed some of the screen grabs and seeing a few scenes and everything. I don't think you learn anything more about the movie.
No, I think it's totally unintentional.
Yeah.
If they maybe had 10 years in post-production,
maybe,
it might have lined up.
But it's like some of the shots that line up, I mean, really cool.
They look great, but it's just consequential, that way.
Yeah, exactly. And you see Stanley Kubrick in the clouds. He was photoshopped into the clouds. Don't think so.
If you look really closely, you can see Stanley in the clouds. If you know what Stanley looked like when he was making this movie.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
I wouldn't mind. That's right at the start. So I was staring hard at those clouds.
Me
and
too.
I'm like, am I just not seeing it?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, maybe I'm just not seeing
my
it.
eyes, my uneducated eyes can't see it.
Am I looking in the wrong place?
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe if I squint.
Yeah, and then there's other elements like, you know, the layout of the maze. The layout of the hotel makes no sense.
Now, this is true, though, from what I've investigated.
Yeah, this is Ian's favourite thing to talk about this movie.
This fucked my head up so badly. It's another maze, another layer.
Yeah.
So, the architecture in this movie, I figured out that this is the scariest movie to watch if you're an architect. Yeah. This would make you throw up. Because there's just spatial anomalies everywhere in the hotel.
Oh, yeah.
It makes no sense.
It's...
So there's rooms that go to nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's like walls that have rooms. Like it would be like a 3-foot deep room. It makes no sense.
The most famous one is that Ullman's office has a window
that looks outdoors
to nowhere.
To nowhere.
There shouldn't be a window there.
It's encased by other rooms.
Yeah. And then
and they like the set is so big that you can clearly see that it's encased by other rooms because there's long shots where there's people running or he's cycling and all through all these different rooms, and you can clearly see that there's a hallway where his window is.
Yeah.
And why I think this is intentional, and I was watching a little breakdown of all these spatial anomalies in the hotel, and why I think this is true, that it was intentional, is because that hallway exists behind Ullman's office. So they would have had to, when they were doing the shots in Ullman's office, they would have had to do a lighting rig and put fake trees up in this hallway.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that really made sense to me, where I was like, actually now I think maybe it is true.
Yeah. And the windows in their room don't make sense either.
Because it's not a corner room.
It's not a corner room. You see that when Danny's put out the window, you know, they don't live in a corner room, but they've windows like they've a corner room.
Yeah, they've windows everywhere.
Or room 237 is much bigger. It would be encroaching on the room next to it. It's so big.
Yeah, unless there's 2 rooms. There's 2 doors to every room in the hotel.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
There's staircases, and then there's a room just right next to the staircase. And like, there's just the room can't exist.
Yeah.
There's so many doors to places that could not exist. There's hallways that don't make sense as well.
It's great. It's so cool. That's probably the best thing to come from this documentary, is realizing just how much this hotel does not make any sense.
And there's an amazing, fantastic breakdown on YouTube if you look it up.
Yeah, you should check that out.
Oh, did you see how they came across this originally?
No.
They were making a video game, and he wanted to make a level that was the Overlook Hotel, and it was some first-person shooter game.
Yeah.
So they made this like special edition. I don't know if it was like a DL or whatever like that. But yeah, when the guy who was making the level investigated, like he watched the movie to try figure out the blueprints of it, that's when he realized, oh, I can't do this properly. I have to lie in it because it makes no sense.
Yeah. Also, Steven Spielberg, in the most recent movie Ready Player One, as an homage to Stanley Kubrick, did the whole Shining thing,
which is so cool. And he was supposed to do a Blade Runner scene,
but they couldn't get the rights
because they were doing Blade Runner
2049.
Yeah, which makes sense. So they're like,
totally.
Oh, we kind of prefer if you didn't do.
But it's nice that he got to do like an homage to Stanley instead of it, you know.
And they were friends.
They were good friends, apparently.
And Steven Spielberg also done
Schindler's List,
artificial intelligence.
Oh, AI, yeah.
Which was a Stanley Kubrick screenplay,
yeah.
Unfinished screenplay.
But apparently Stanley Kubrick was writing a Holocaust movie and it was depressing him. And then Schindler's List came out and he said, "Thank God I don't have to do it now."
Yeah, didn't have to do it now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, look, check it.
Sorry. Yeah,
no. What were you gonna say?
We never just said the guy that's obsessed with sex.
Oh yeah,
he's just like, it's all about sex.
It's all about sex, and he's the guy who's most full of himself in the whole thing.
He loves it. I'll give you one. I'll give you one.
He's like, I'll give you one.
I'll educate you once.
Look, he's talking about it like he's giving them like golden nuggets of
and the
insights.
second he gives you one, he's like, oh well, I'll give you 2, but the rest is in my book.
It's all in my book. You know,
It's
you
all
gotta
in my
check out my book. Listen, it's all there to see. I've outlined it all, but
He's just completely obsessed with sex.
Yeah.
And he's just saying about how the movie's all about sex.
it's all about sex.
I'd love to figure out, like, I'd like to actually see his book, read his book, just to know how, like, the hedge is about sex, and especially at the end, when he's frozen.
I feel like it's such a waste of time. They sneak a Playgirl into the movie as well.
That's great.
Jack's reading a Playgirl when they come and
just before
talk
he
to him.
interviews for a job.
Just before no, it's his first day on the job.
Oh, his first day in the job.
Yeah. He's sitting there having eaten breakfast, reading a Playgirl.
As you do.
As you do. But yeah, so check out Room 237. It's an awesome watch.
It is. It's actually really fun to watch.
Yeah, and you know, it's something good to watch after you've seen the movie.
Yeah, definitely. You know? And also, there's if after you watch it, you probably shouldn't check this out beforehand, but you can find out loads of interviews with people who worked on the movie talking about how nonsensical some of the ideas are.
Just debunking everything. Like, for example, the typewriter. You know, that it's a specifically chosen typewriter or whatever.
It was just convenient.
It's a convenient one. It was one they had, you know. I don't know. It's just... people see what they want to see, you know?
Yeah.
There's always an element of that in every movie. I'm burping so much.
We never talked about the moon landing.
Oh, well, that's the famous one.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah.
That's the one that I hope is real, even though I fully don't believe it.
Well, I'll let you... Well, apparently, we touched on this briefly, but the entire movie The Shining is Stanley Kubrick telling us that he faked the moon landing.
It's his confession.
Yeah.
And there's a great scene, the Apollo 11 scene, where Danny is playing with his cars. It's such an iconic scene, actually.
Totally.
And the ball just rolls to him. And he's got the Apollo 11 jumper on, and he stands up and he walks to room 237. And what was the logic?
So the only capitalized letters on the room 237 are ROOM N, and then the second O is
it's
number,
a small O,
because it has room NO as in room number 237, and there's a small O, and the only words you can spell with those letters are room and
So so moon room is what they think it is, basically. And 237 could be the studio lot
where
that
he filmed it.
But then also they make the connection that there's approximately 237,000 miles from Earth to the moon. So this is another indication that Stanley Kubrick is confessing to all of us through the adaptation of Stephen King's novel that he filmed the moon landing.
Or maybe the hotel, the Timberline Hotel, said, we have a room 217 and no one will want to stay in there if you shoot a horror movie in it. So maybe do a room that we don't have, like say 237.
And maybe, ironically, room 217 ended up being their most
popular room. Everyone wants to sleep there now. I mean, I would if I was staying there. I'd want to stay into room 217. 100%. And they think the character, the former caretaker, and the fact that Ullman looks like JFK is like JFK is the nice approach, trying to get him to film it, and then the other guy is like the CIA or FBI, kind of keeping a watch on things, you know, making sure he does his job and everything.
This only works for like 3 or 4 scenes in the movie, you know?
Totally, yeah. What's
all the rest of the nonsense in between?
Yeah.
No wonder it makes no sense. It's about the moon landing.
Exactly. Listen, it's a famous theory. I'm sure you've heard it before.
I heard it before, but I never heard the exact details.
Me neither.
And I actually enjoyed it. I did enjoy it.
I did enjoy it. It was one of the ones that was closer to winning me over.
Especially when he said the 237,000 miles. I was like, oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Like they're finding more connections.
But I mean, I don't think it's true. I think they landed on the moon in 1960. Yeah. But
and if they didn't, I don't believe that Stanley Kubrick filmed it. No. And also, they try to say that 2001: A Space Odyssey
was him testing.
It's him doing test footage.
Yeah. What I love is him, and then
one of the most renowned films in the world is test footage.
Test footage for a moon landing.
For a fake moon landing.
I love that. The guys like it, and I've spoken to many people who filmed on this, and they've said, I have definitely discovered that this is the faking of the moon landing. And I'm like, you've gone too far down the rabbit hole. And then another thing he says, Stanley Kubrick, you know, he's just released 2001: A Space Odyssey. He's mastered everything. What more could he do except fake a moon landing?
Fake a moon landing.
It's like, Jesus Christ.
Also, they got an Englishman
Oh,
to
yeah.
fake the. So he doesn't even. Oh, I'm debunking it right now.
Yeah.
He doesn't even leave England. Stanley Kubrick, we already covered that he won't leave England. So what? The fake moon landing, the fake American moon landing, was filmed by an Englishman
Yeah.
in England, and they just send over the tapes to America.
Don't think so. Don't think those tapes ever went overseas.
If it was faked, I think they'd keep it in-house.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be an in-house thing. And
Spielberg did it.
And Stanley Kubrick flying anywhere would be mysterious.
Yes.
Yeah, people would have picked up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spielbergo would have been done it, you know?
Yeah.
Like in The Simpsons, you know? Where Mr. Burns hires the most acclaimed director that they can, Steven Spielbergo. Yeah, he's a Mexican version. But, yeah, so anyway, check out Room 237. It's really cool. There's lots of great theories in it. It's a fun watch.
It is. And don't go in thinking it's real.
No.
Which I did, and then got very confused instantly and was like, what's going on here?
And don't watch the movie trying to make everything work, because it won't.
It won't. It really won't.
The last thing we want to kind of touch on is Dr. Sleep.
Yes, which I'm really excited for.
Very excited for. After all this, watching this movie over and over again, reading the books, having read both books and everything, I'm very excited for Dr. Sleep.
Mike Flanagan is directing it.
Haunting of Hill House, Gerald's Game, great horror director.
Amazing. He did so well with Gerald's Game, which is a Stanley...
Stephen King.
Stephen King. Oh,
Yeah.
Stephen King would hate that.
He would
I
hate
made that
that.
mistake.
Yeah, yeah.
He would absolutely hate that.
He's going to come to you tonight. And
Where I think Jack Nicholson would be like, you said Nicolas Cage.
How would Nicolas Cage react, though?
I don't know. You don't know.
You can't tell with
It
him.
depends what day.
Yeah, it would. It depends how much money he has, whether the IRS,
Yeah,
whether the
exactly.
IRS is taking his other pyramid.
He might rob me. Dr. Sleep.
Yeah,
We found out it's over 2.5 hours long.
And, you know, he's working with Stephen King, Mike Flanagan is, to try and make it a sequel to both the movie and the book.
Which is so interesting.
Really
because
interesting.
Stephen King has been a little bit more hands-on on this one.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, he has to put his ego aside, which is most likely impossible.
Most likely.
Because, that's what Mike Flanagan's saying, that the hardest thing about making this movie is that he's juggling both. So it's going to be a sequel to the movie, and it 100% exists in the same cinematic universe as The Shining. That's what he has said.
I imagine Stephen King for the Overlook Hotel will say that it's been abandoned. Because that'll be the closest he can get to having it blown up, you know?
And it looks like, in the trailer, it looks like Danny revisits the Overlook Hotel. He's looking through the door.
Yeah.
The famous door. Here's Johnny door.
I've read it, so I don't want to give away what happens, but yes, it does look like that from the trailer.
Yeah, it does look like that from the trailer. Fuck you.
It does look like that. I'm very excited. Ewan McGregor is playing Danny. I love it. And apparently Daniel Lloyd, the original actor for Danny, has a cameo in the movie.
Has a cameo, yes, which I love. And loads of people were giving out saying he should come back for it. The man is a teacher.
Yeah.
He hasn't acted. He's 47 the last time I checked.
Yeah.
So he hasn't acted in around 40 odd years.
Yeah.
You know?
Look,
give or take.
Also, you know, just Ewan McGregor's an excellent fit. He's an excellent actor. I love Ewan McGregor as an actor.
Also, trying to convince Warner Brothers to get this teacher who, I'm sorry, I don't know what he looks like now, but he's probably a bit overweight. He might not have the best hairline.
Doesn't look well.
Or have the $1 million smile that is Ewan McGregor, who's
No.
also a fantastic actor.
Yeah. Who could pull it off, basically.
Yeah, Rebecca Ferguson's in it.
Yeah, sexy Rebecca Ferguson. Hopefully she gets her legs out at some stage. I'm sorry. I'm obsessed with Rebecca Ferguson's legs.
After Mission Impossible,
so
oh my
many.
God.
Listen, it keeps shoving them in my face. I'm going to be obsessed by them.
Of course.
Of course. What else?
I agree with that logic.
The woman has assets.
It makes me feel less creepy.
Yeah, and her character is a very sexually driven character. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to see what they do with that.
I'm excited too.
No, it'll be interesting because, like I said, if The Shining, the book, leans in more than the film to the psychic element of it, Dr. Sleep relies on you buying into that. So I'm interested in how they're going to keep the ambiguity of the first movie and translate it over to Dr. Sleep, because I don't think it'll work.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Mike Flanagan has said, he's gone on record to say it's going to be in the same vein as The Shining when it comes to jump scares.
Yeah.
He's like, it's going to be more of a psychological horror than there's a ghost, you know.
Hopefully.
Which is, it's great that this is one of the scariest horrors ever made.
Totally.
And it's so different than any horror ever made.
There's no jump scare.
No jump scares.
No.
Even like the most famous movies like Halloween
have jump scares.
and Friday the 13th.
Yeah, jump scares in those movies. It's crazy. And look, a silent terror and, quiet foreboding and everything is always better than the jump scare. But, first reactions are in for Dr. Sleep. It's meant to be really good.
It's hard to trust them because first reactions
Are
for every
always good.
movie, it's like they're paid for.
Batman v Superman was apparently the greatest comic book movie ever.
Oh my god! And I had read that before I seen the Rotten Tomatoes score, so I went in going, "This is gonna blow my mind."
Wow, you're a fool.
I know.
Foolish young boy. Remember when you were young, Ian, and you believed things like that?
Yeah, I believed in nice things. I believed in Zack Schneider.
Oh Jesus! Remember those days, the 300 Watchmen days.
But I'm going to be cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
Mike Flanagan is a perfect fit for this.
Yeah. When's it come out, Dr. Sleep?
It comes out this month, October, and I think. Let me check because I know we get it actually a little bit early.
Excellent.
I think we get it on Wednesday, Halloween.
Oh, excellent.
Actually on Halloween, but I know it unravels a bit slower internationally.
I might go see it then on Wednesday.
It'd be a great movie to see on Halloween.
Yeah, I have no plans on doing anything on Halloween because I'm old now.
You're not going to dress up as Danny?
Not anymore. I'm closer to Jack now. Alcoholism and all that.
Yeah, actually, true.
That's why I wore the red jumper. I brought a Christmas kind of Danny style jumper with me, and I decided it was terrible. So I put on this red one to try and emulate my hero.
I enjoyed how terrible it was.
Jack Torrance. Yeah, no, I'm not going to bring it out because it's so bad. My girlfriend told me not to wear it. And I went, no, it'll be funny. And then I got
Did she actually say that?
I showed it to her and she was like, why are you wearing that? It looks terrible. And I'm like, I know, but it'll be funny. And then I got here and I went, I'm not wearing that jumper. Yeah. So, do you have the release date there?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, we hope you've enjoyed this special episode.
Sorry.
Of Straight to Serious.
Yes, October 31st worldwide, but it says November 8th for the United States.
Oh, that's weird.
I don't know, we get it beforehand.
I really want to see it now.
Yeah, man, I'm so engrossed in this movie.
Yeah.
I need to see it.
I know.
Even though I don't expect, it doesn't need to be great. It actually doesn't. Like, it's not going to, unlike most sequels that can sometimes take away from the original, it's not made by Stanley Kubrick. Nobody's really returning cast-wise, you know. I don't really mind. I don't really mind. If it's a bad movie, I'm like, it's a shame. Yeah. If it's really good, it'll be great. You know, I'll be so happy.
Yeah.
It's a win-win situation in a way. Totally.
I'm exactly the same boat as you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for watching and listening to this special episode, Halloween Spooktacular.
Yeah, this maze-like episode.
Yes, exactly.
I'm telling you, it's a deep hole.
We did not cover everything, so please look into it yourselves because it'll only get better for you, basically.
Yeah, we're turning into the people in the documentary that we're mocking.
Yeah, basically, we're just.
We're going to be in the sequel.
If you've seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia, this is similar to the Pepe Sylvia scene. Yeah. You know, there was string all over these walls, trying to put things together, figure out what we were going to say. Ugh.
We're going to be in the documentary room 238.
Yeah, 238.
The sequel, and we're going to be like pulling our hair out.
Yeah.
It started as a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Ian's going to somehow end up younger than me. I'm going to be aged.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm sure it's about the porn industry in the 1970s.
Exactly. I'm going to think it's about, I don't know, football or something. Something for some reason. I'll find some reason to think it's about football.
Well, you know when Jack kicks that guy in the head.
Yeah, he's throwing around a ball, a tennis ball, but it could be a football.
It could be a football.
No, but thank you very much for watching and listening. We'll do a review of Dr. Sleep when it comes out.
100%. We have to.
Maybe a spoiler review.
Maybe a spoiler review. Depends how good it is. If it's terrible, I'm like, I don't need
it. Yeah, we might need.
Spoiler alert! Don't watch it.
Yeah, exactly. You know? That'll be as in deep as the spoiler review does if it's terrible. But yeah, thanks guys. Do your own investigating into The Shining.
Great fun.
Have a good Halloween, and hopefully there'll be another special episode like this at Christmas.
Oh yes, it's a good one.
Quick tease there. We're going to go out to the coast and have a few laughs. That's what we're going to do at Christmas.
I don't get that connection.
Okay.
You can explain afterwards.
I will. Goodbye, everyone.
See you.
Goodbye, everyone. Do your Jack Torrance there at the camera.
Jack Torrance.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
You got to do impression.
That's enough. All right.